Here's a neat request. I'm pretty sure that a green leaf is green, but in several of your tips, you talk about light changing the color. Please do a quick tip that shows how this happens. That's going to be a fun one to do. Well, if you're living during a season or in an area where we have greens, where you have greens outside available to you, this will be a real fun experiment for you to do. And that is, this is caught on a day when the sun was moving, or the light was moving really, really fast. There were clouds in the sky, and they were moving over the light. And I was watching how those greens were changing, how the light was changing the entire scene, just within seconds sometimes, or in minutes. So I thought this would be a really good way to show you how to see that, how to see how light changes color, and how to actually interpret that color that you're seeing. So here we go. Just looking at this, you can see that in this photograph, where the light is more focused on the frontal images themselves, you see it more clearly. The emphasis is placed more on that frontal light. The background is still in shadow, and so you see that strong value contrast, very key there. But we don't see so much value contrast up here. So the colors are very close in value in this one, except on the areas here and here and here and here, where there's just a little bit of light showing. So I'm going to choose just one area. I'm going to choose this little leaf right here, because we can use it to show how that color changes and how we can work out how the color changes and what colors we can use to create an interpretation of what we're seeing here, here, and here. Especially if these two are very, very much alike, just very subtle changes here. And most of the change in this one happens right down in here, as you can see. So here we go. Now what do we think of first? If we look at any green or any color, and we just call it green, okay, that's green, so you're going to reach for a green, but it might not be the right green. The best way to figure that one out is to start with first of all, the hue. What is the hue we're seeing? Remember that green can be yellow green or it can be blue green. And it can also change. It can be a more neutralized green or a very highly saturated green. So green itself can change in many directions and still be green. But as artists, painters especially, it's a good thing for us to distinguish between those greens, or else we're not going to be able to interpret them. All right, so if I just take my color wheel, for example, and I put right here, I'm seeing that green, the green right here feels akin to that, but it seems to me to be leaning, if you look now, this side of the green is more like that, but this side of the green is leaning towards that. Now if I put it right down here, I'm seeing something totally different happen. I'm seeing the green, this side of the green is leaning a little bit more towards this, which is yellow green, and there it changes altogether. Now we got to keep in mind the camera does change the color. It overexposes where there's strong light. But if we're looking at what we're seeing here, that would be a good color exercise to help us figure that out. All right, so if we start out knowing that here in this one, what we're seeing there is a little bit of a change where the green kind of moves on one side a little cooler and on the other side a little warmer. By cool and warm I mean by warmer it's leaning a little bit more towards yellow, cooler it's leaning a little bit more towards blue. Let's look at how we figure that out. So we've got the hue now, and we can really start out with any green to figure this out. But so if we say, okay, that leans a little bit more towards blue-green, and it depends on what you have on your palette. In this case, just for fun, I'm going to start with blue-green, which is the Rembrandt Viridian. Now there it is right there. Now that green is much darker than this green. So the next thing I look at is what value is it. And so I'm seeing that this green needs to be lighter. The logical thing, we think, the logical thing to do to lighten anything is to put white in it. So we'll just go that direction. So I'm going to add a little bit of white into this green. And let's see if we can get it now the same value. And let's see. Okay, if you squint, it may be just a slight bit lighter than that. But if you squint between those, you see they're different, but they're in the same value range. Well, what's missing in this? And that then has to do with the hue, not the value anymore. Once you get the value, once we see what value the color is, then we look at what is different. So we can see, first of all, we can see the hue is different. This green needs a little more yellow in it. And so that is how I decide to reach for a little bit more yellow. So I'll just reach in for my Hansa Yellow Light. Any one of those yellows, Hansa Yellow Light, Cadmium Yellow Light, any of those should do. And let's just pull some yellow into it. Now the proportion does matter. If I put too much yellow in it, it's going to be too much yellow-green. If I don't put enough, it won't be quite yellow-green enough. So let's just see. Did I hit it? All right, now it seems to be the right yellow. Maybe we could take just a little bit more yellow in it, but then something else is missing. It's not quite right yet. What's missing? Well, what's missing is it's too saturated. It needs to have some of that saturation taken away. All right, yellow-green, or blue-green rather, this is what we started with, blue-green, yellow-green. All the greens have complements across on the other side of the color wheel. And any one of those complements should be able to neutralize this yellow-green. So, I could choose a red, or I could choose a red-orange. I think I'll choose a red-orange. Red-orange has the red and the yellow in it. So I think I'll choose a red-orange. But my red-orange is the Rembrandt Transparent Oxide Red, which is very dark. You see, the value is very dark. So that by itself is just going to make it darker. I need to get that the same value as this before I add it to it. Now I'm breaking this down into the very basics for you, where you can do it much quicker. I'm just breaking it down for you so that you can see how you can come up with that color. All right, so let's add some white in here, and let's get it as close to that value range as we can. As I squint, that's not quite enough, so we'll add a little bit more. And perhaps if I squint, it's difficult too when you're comparing the values of a warm color to a cool color. It's difficult to see their values, but if you squint at them, you can see them better. And so that is close enough. I'm going to pull a little bit of this, not much. The proportion of the two colors will result in different mixtures. So I'm going to pull just a little bit into this, and let's see what happens. A little bit. Now we can see that saturation, also called intensity, also called chroma, we can see that saturation now has changed. Let's hold it up here. Okay, maybe I kind of overshot. Now you see, or maybe I now see that I got it a little too yellow. It kind of matches what's over here, but over here it's still cooler. So let's just go back into this original mixture without the yellow, and let's adjust. So if you are looking for specifics in color, specifics in what is the hue doing, what is the value doing, what is the intensity doing, when you look for those specifics, you know what color to use. You don't have to use that trial and error. And therefore you won't make as many errors. So when I add the other, okay, that's closer to what I have there, and what that tells me it needs to be now. Well, let's do this. Let's take the brush and let's pull some of this onto the canvas right here. There, this is what I see right there. Now it doesn't look like it because it's surrounded by white, but in hue it is what I'm seeing right there. You saw me compare it. Now I'm going to add a little bit of that cooler mixture at the same value into that, and I want you to watch what happens. Let's get just a little bit of that. And there we go. You see, that is right on the money of this blue-green to yellow-green. And it's also interesting to notice that it's not the same green all the way across. That this side is a little bit bluer and this side goes a little bit more towards the yellow-green. So there's a cute one for you. So we put these two side by side, and this is sort of what you see. Now, if we were to surround that with, well, we can actually do just a little bit of that here. Surround that with a darker color, a darker green. That's what we're seeing there. A darker green is very, very dark. I'm going to show you the difference in that. Now, if I put this darker color around it, you see how that enhances? I'm not shaping leaf. I'm just showing you color here. So I'm just going to do this part down here. Now you can see that feels more like what we're seeing right here. So the values and colors around a color is also going to affect it. And now we see here that we have the value contrast, the degree of value contrast in this one as compared to this one also influences that, shall we say, how the eye is attracted. Let's go directly from this one to this one and see what the difference is. So in the one on the bottom, the light is much stronger. The light that's hitting this is much stronger. And so let's see what the stronger light does to that same green. So if we look at this green right here, and if we remember, we started on the green, and then we saw on this side up here that it was a little bit more blue-green, but we're not seeing that here. What we're seeing here with that light change, this area is getting a little bit more light. Not quite, it's not full light yet. It's a little bit more light, and by getting that little bit more light, it's leaning a little bit more towards green. Is it leaning a little bit more towards the? Yes, it is. We can see here, it's a little bit warmer. We feel it has a little more yellow in it than this green. It doesn't have quite as much yellow as this green. So we can see right there that with just a little bit more light, that bluer green changes to more of a yellow green. And we see something else happening as I brought out earlier. There, am I on the right one? Yeah, right here. As I pointed out earlier, something totally different happens right here. Well, we'll address this one first. We know what to do now because we've already gone through that little drill. We know that this green that we used here on this side has got to have more yellow in it. So we reach for the yellow, and I think the next question would be, it's got to have more yellow in it. Does it also need to have a higher intensity, a lower intensity? Also, or higher or lower, does it need the saturation change? Also, the next question is, does the value need to be changed? So we find out, let's just do a comparison in value. Okay, there's a comparison in value there. This is pretty much the same value. It's a little lighter here. So when it's a little bit lighter, we add more white. That's going back to the value first. Hue, once we identify the hue, then we identify the value. Now let's see. That's more like it. Maybe it needs to be just slightly cooler if I'm going to be real picky about it. And of course your monitors are going to vary, so it's highly possible that your monitor may be showing it in a different color than my eyes are seeing it. So take that into account. But even if your monitors are showing it a different color, the principle is going to work the same. All right, so let's put a little bit of that particular green right here. Now, this is in essence what we're, oh, I put it on the wrong side. This is in essence what we're seeing in, no, I didn't put it on the wrong side, did I? Because the darker side is over here. Okay, let me wipe that away. So that is in essence what we're seeing this green change to on this side right here. So we'll just take that away. It's a good thing that when you get those things reversed, sometimes it's easy to do, especially if the light reverses it for you, which is what our light did. All right, so now we're going to look for that change in value or change in hue, total change in hue. right here. What does that do? One thing that we see is it goes lighter first. So let's get the value right. How much lighter does it go? And then we'll just add the value, pull the green itself down into this value. How light does that go? We see an extreme change in value. Okay, I've got it pretty much the same value, but now I'm seeing that that is a warmer, or it's got more yellow in it. Now, in this case, I could reach for yellow ochre, or I could reach for yellow. Or I could take yellow and mix it with a little bit of this transparent oxide red, which would bring that red out in it. And so there are several ways you can go, in other words, because you see when I'm doing this, that very much looks like yellow ochre. So there are various ways you can go as far as the color you choose. The important thing, if you identify it by its hue, you're okay. All right, so a little bit of that we won't take very much into this should give us what we're looking at. So let's see if it does. All right, okay, I kind of overdid it, and that's easy to do when you're trying to get just precise mixtures. And you know, when we're painting, as long as we get it in the neighborhood, we're good. As long as we can actually make it feel like that kind of light, this kind of light, we're good. So the precision when we're interpreting is not as important as precision when we're doing the studies and trying to learn about the mixing that we need to do in order to make this happen. So let's see here. That's getting much closer, and now it's telling me a little bit more of the light. Of course, as I said earlier, if I'm out there looking at it, that's not what I'm going to see. If I'm out there looking at it, I'm going to see more color, more hue in that light area there. But the camera bleached that out. And so this is really closer to what we'd see if we were out there. And now you can see, if I put those side by side, right there, now you can see the difference in this and this is the difference in how the light changed the color from this to this. Well, this one I'm working with. It's all the same. The light's doing the same thing. Anyway, so that would be a wonderful exercise for you to do, and a wonderful little experiment, especially if you can't catch something that's green when maybe the clouds are moving across the sky and blocking the sun and causing various lights to change color. Then try different times of day, or try different kinds of weather. Try the same subject on a sunny day, on the same subject on an overcast day. You'll see that whenever, depending on how that light is, depending on what's blocking the light, depending on the location of the light, you'll see that those greens will actually change. Be sure to view all of our quick tips. And while you're doing so, subscribe to the channel, click on the bell, so you'll always get a notice when we produce a new quick tip, which is every week. And if you have a question, leave it in the comments section and we'll make a quick tip for you. Also, take a trip over to DianeMize.com, where I have full-length lessons, downloads, DVDs, lots of other stuff there, some free stuff for you. And while you're there, you can subscribe to the newsletter, and that way you'll always be informed every time we do something new.